exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe exploring the unexplained, UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
What a breathtaking sight. It's almost like we're walking through the Garden of Eden.
Yep. El Yunque is one of the most beautiful rainforests in the world. And you know, Tim, it's steeped in all sorts of UFO legends and lore.
How's that, Tim?
Well, there's lots of low-level sightings near the observation tower up there. Aliens hiding out in caves, even a supposed UFO crash a little while back.
Wow, I can't wait to hear about that. And don't forget those pesky chupacabras that are all over the jungle. And our guest tonight, live from Puerto Rico, is like the #1 researcher on the island, who has been investigating this phenomena since the early 1970s. Unfortunately, Hurricane Maria decimated the lush jungle habitat and all its inhabitants, aliens and earthlings. Plus, there is UFO secrecy involved.
Yeah, lots of that. Well, let's finish up here and head back to the studio in Las Vegas.
Well, I hate to leave the jungle, even though it is a little bit hot, I have to admit. And this one alien has me by the leg and is trying to take my pants off.
Off, naughty alien.
Yeah. Do it some other time when we have more time to spare.
There you go. We really have a special guest tonight, and this is somebody that Tim Beckley and myself have been looking forward to talking with for quite a while. And our guest tonight is Jorge Martin. Now, I'll do a little bit of an introduction for you there, Jorge. Now, Jorge is an investigative journalist and researcher of the UFO phenomena in Puerto Rico. He's investigated hundreds of cases and incidents related to the UFO phenomena, as well as the Chupacabra mystery. His works have been published in over 20 countries around the world. Now, Jorge has consulted in the production of television shows and documentaries about UFOs for the Discovery Channel, the Learning Channel, and programs such as Explorer on National Geographic, Unsolved Mysteries, Strange Universe, and for specials from Mexico, Ecuadorian, Venezuelan, Japanese, German, and English television. Now, Jorge has produced several radio programs on the subject in Puerto Rico and is the author of such book as The Lazar Report, Caribbean UFO Cover Up of the Third Kind, Taken in the Light, and El Yunque, A Portal to Other Worlds. So, Jorge Martin, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Exploring the Bizarre.
Good night, Mr. Swartz. Pleased to meet you. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Now, I remember reading your articles in Tim Beckley's UFO Universe. And that's, I think that was one of the first places that I found out about what a hotbed of UFO activity Puerto Rico is. Now, of course, by the time that I found out about this probably would have been the middle 1980s. But apparently, UFO sightings and other unusual phenomena had been taking place on the island for quite some time.
Yes, the activity pertaining to UFOs, aliens, etc., in Puerto Rico is very high and has been so for many decades. Okay, you are correct. The articles I wrote for UFO Universe, Timothy's magazine, were back in the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. But many more things have been happening here in the island, and as you will see by the thing we will talking tonight, they are very important.
So now, what first got you involved in researching and investigating UFOs?
Okay, I was always interested in this matter, okay, even since I was a small kid.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back in 1969, I used to read a lot about this phenomenon and the theories involved, and books of United States researchers, French, and other countries now. But in 1969, I was following the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. And I remember that at one moment, one of the astronauts, I don't know if it was Buzz Aldrin or Armstrong, but the thing is that I heard they were talking with NASA by radio.
Right.
And one of them said, NASA, we are being followed by a strange object, a shiny oval-shaped object. And then the communication was cut off. Okay, apparently the transmission was changed to another frequency, something that they tend to do very often in that type of situations. And at that moment, I became aware, hey, something real is going on. Okay, these stories about the flying saucers and the UFO phenomenon and everything, there's something to this. Okay, and ever since that happened, I became more interested in this phenomenon and began doing some personal research, until 1973, when I became involved with a group here in Puerto Rico, the Centro de Estudios OVNI de Puerto Rico, the Puerto Rico UFO Center, that was associated with the UFO Center of Dr. Hynek in the United States in Evanston, Illinois, and began doing more serious research on the events that were happening in Puerto Rico pertaining to the UFO phenomenon. And since then, I've been involved with this matter all my life.
Well, and you certainly were really in the best position, especially in the early 1970s when they that UFO flap started. Gosh, and I can't remember the name of the town, especially that it was centered around. But I wanted to get to this was something that we had talked about before the program, and I've heard a lot about this, but I have never really gotten really a good description of these events that you were telling me about. And this was the U.S. Navy Alien UFO Project that that occurred around. And how do you pronounce the name of the island?
The Vieques Island.
Vieques Island, right.
It's located about 15 miles away from the east coast of Puerto Rico and belongs to the territory of Puerto Rico. The U.S. Navy used to have two bases there. The eastern section of the island and the western section of the island belonged to the U.S. Navy, okay? And they had bases on the western side, and in the eastern side, they had this restricted area where they did military exercises, bombing practices, and things like that.
So what happened that really first started getting people's attention that something really unusual was taking place there?
Okay, the thing is that back in 1999, something happened there, okay, this graceful event, okay. Before that, there had been some protests in the island by the residents of Vieques because they wanted the U.S. Navy to leave the island because there was only a small part in the center of the island that was allowed for people to live inside of it. The rest of the island was under military exercise and things like that. And it was controlled also by the U.S. Navy station, Rudder Road, that was located in Ceiba, in the eastern tip of the main land of Puerto Rico. They were very connected, okay? And in 1999, there was an accident. One of the jets from a U.S., how do you say, carrier?
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Carrier, one of the planes was doing some bombing practices, inside the area of where they did this type of things, and by mistake, he let go a bomb at the wrong place, and a Vieques civilian guard that worked for the U.S. Navy died. At that moment, all hell broke loose, and the people of Vieques began asking the U.S. Navy to leave the island, to stop the practices there, that they didn't want that type of activity there anymore, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. And we noticed something very strange pertaining to the way the U.S. authorities, the U.S. Navy authorities, and the Puerto Rican local authorities talked about what had happened there. They were very ambiguous about the whole thing. And of course, we can understand that pertaining to, because of the political situation between Puerto Rico and the United States, etc., etc. Sometimes it's very difficult to talk about certain things. But we had noticed before, Tim, that whenever the UFO matter was involved somehow with the situations involved in some different cases, such as disappearances of planes or boats or whatever, they behaved in the same manner, okay? They were very ambiguous about everything they said. And we began wondering, okay, what's going on here? Is there a possibility that there's an alien UFO angle related to all this that have happened during these late days? And my wife told me, hey, Jorge, let's go down there to Vieques and check it out, because there's something strange. They won't talk clearly about it. And we went there, and what we found was a plethora of cases. It was incredible. I never imagined a thing like that, okay? For many, many years, the people of Vieques had been witnessing UFOs, large-sized UFOs, small ones, cylinder-shaped crafts, sphere-shaped craft. They had been seeing aliens. Most of them were the small gray-type aliens that seem to be amphibians, because at all times they see them coming up from the water in the coastline, or going into lagoons, remaining underwater in the lagoons, and then going back to the sea. And they had seen crafts land in different parts of the island from which these creatures came out. Okay, the creatures seemed to be very friendly to the people. They didn't harm them. They were very, how could I say? They seemed to be friendly to some degree. They approached people. They were very curious about people, but they wouldn't let them get really close to them. And whenever that happened, they ran away into the sea, or into the crafts and departed, or into the lagoons. And later on, a craft would come and they would depart in the lagoon, in these crafts. But we also found many things, Tim, that had to do with what seemed to be, in our opinion, with a secret U.S. Navy project that had to do with the contact with alien species, and also with alien crafts. There were many incidents in which people who were with U.S. Navy, civilian, Puerto Ricans, Viequenses civilians who were with U.S. Navy, policemen, and many other people saw in these places, especially in the area of where the bombing practices were being made by the U.S. Navy, they saw large, huge flying saucer type crafts coming down from the sky and going down and landing next to some lagoons there. And whenever that happened, the Puerto Rican officials, the security guards, and the low-level members of the U.S. Navy who were there during the practices were ordered by high-level officers that were there to leave the area immediately, and not to say anything about what they had seen there when this craft came down there in the bombing area. And these high-level officers from the U.S. Navy remained there. They didn't know what happened afterwards. If they went down there to where the craft landed, if they talked to the occupants of the crafts or whatever, but they saw that on several occasions. And also during the protests there were many incidents inside of the U.S. Navy perimeter of this bombing area, many peaceful resistance, protesters got inside that part of the base to prevent the U.S. Navy from doing exercises there. They were acting as human shields, and they did that on many occasions. But when they were inside the area, they saw incredible things. They saw huge cylinder-shaped craft, hanging motionless in the sky next to the observation point number 1. That was the building from where the U.S. Navy personnel and the other personnel there from Raytheon Corporation that was working together with the U.S. Navy in the area, where they supervised the military practices, the bombings, etc., etc. And that was very strange because these crafts remained there for some time, for half an hour, and then departed. But they were able to see this, and so they saw beings, they saw crafts going into the water, into the sea, all around the place, coming out from the sea. The fishermen there, Tim, if you go to Vieques, you can talk freely to the fishermen all around the island, and they will tell you incredible stories about everything they had seen. Large flying saucer type craft that come out from the water, remain on top of their boats, and then leave. Large flying saucer type craft absorbing water from the sea in large columns of water that goes up into the UFOs, this craft, and many other things. So the amount of information that we got there was incredible. We never expected that to be that way. But it showed us that the U.S. Navy had some type of secret, maybe contact program with alien species, or maybe they were testing or doing something with the alien technology at the place. And we eventually wrote a book where we reported all of this. All this information is in our book, Vieques, Polígono del Tercer Tipo, that is the one that you mentioned in English language title, Vieques, Caribbean UFO Cover Up of the third kind. So you can have an idea of the type of situation that is down there in Vieques.
So now are these kinds of sightings and encounters still taking place today?
Yes, they are taking place. Okay, they are not very discussed because the media here, ever since that, excuse me, but ever since I published that book, apparently that touched a nerve, sometimes sensitive nerve somewhere, and the media here has been very controlled in discussing these type of things, and what's going down there pertaining to the UFO phenomenon, as well as other places of Puerto Rico, such as the southwestern tip of the island, where there's activity such as this one, very strong. But in that case, the crabs and the beings, etc., seem to come from under the sea. In Vieques, it happens also, but there seems to be something underground that seems to be connected somehow to the situation that is also going on in the area of the Yunque Rainforest, which is in the eastern side of Puerto Rico, next to Roosevelt Road Naval Station, and where there's a very, very heavy alien activity there. Crafts, encounters with aliens. I have hundreds, I can tell you hundreds of testimony of very serious people who have encountered all of this there in the rainforest. And it seems to be related somehow with the situation in Vieques. And also there's a military presence in the rainforest that seems to be people mostly from the U.S. Navy. For many years, I heard that the Air Force was not really the one mainly involved with investigation of the UFO phenomenon, that it was the U.S. Navy. Yes. And all of the things I found here seem to imply just that the U.S. Navy is the one that really has most of the information and the research on this matter.
Now, the U.S. Navy presence on the island, do you think that they came there because of the alleged, underwater alien presence, or that appeared after the U.S. Navy set up shop, so to speak?
Well, many people here used to say that the situation had to do with the Navy being here, but I have information that we can discuss maybe in the next part of the program. Mm-hmm. Everything I have gathered, Tim, implies that these beings, these creatures, have been here in Puerto Rico for a long, long, long time. Okay, underground and undersea. Mm-hmm. And many years ago, in the 30s, I would say, because of some research I have made and received information from people all around the island, apparently in the 1930s, they became aware. The military agencies became aware of what was really going on here. And they began doing their own research and controlling these areas. Many things happened. I have this... But he died already. He was very old already. In 1934, I had this man, his last name was Ribollo. And as a very young man, he used to work with people from the U.S. government that did mineralogy, explorations, hydrology, etc. in the areas of Puerto Rico, checking for minerals and everything else. And for example, in the case of the rainforest, they went there in some months in the certain. They had to remain there because by those days there were no roads. They had to stay in situ and do their examinations, their exploration, etc., etc. And this young man helped them out with their equipment and stayed with them all the time they had to stay there. And he told me that on many occasions they saw these things. They saw small beings, gray type beings. They saw luminous beings. They saw balls of light that changed themselves, transformed into human-like beings and small gray type beings. And they saw craft. They saw flying saucer. They saw flying meteors that came out from the mountains, got into the sky and flew over the area, and then went again into certain mountains. Another type of thing, weird phenomena, and also there's something there, Tim, that even though they are not really creatures like the Bigfoot you have in the United States, but it seem to be similar to a certain degree. And by those days, this man had seen them too, and these American people who worked there, but they wouldn't talk about it. So since 1934, at least, they became aware of everything that was going on there, and they have witnessed people who live, who are old people now, who live in the area surrounding the rainforest, in very high places, that used to see the same crafts going into the same areas, some hollows between some special mountains there, El Yunque, Mount Britain, El Cacique Mountain, El Toro. And the same site, they describe and mention the same places where this craft come from. And in so many occasions, the people who live there, the campesinos, used to see these flying saucers with the beings looking at them, very curious, through the windows of the craft.
All right, Jorge, I'm going to have to interrupt you here because we have to go to our bottom of the hour break. When we can come back, we'll continue with more Exploring the Bizarre.
Now back to Exploring the Bizarre with two of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal, your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
All right, welcome back to Exploring the Bizarre, and Tim Beckley has managed to get away from the little grays that had kidnapped him earlier, and now he's back with us tonight.
Yeah,
so.
The chupacabra was scratching all over me. I got a bad case of jungle fever. I think.
Ooh,
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, we're improving minute by minute. And anyway, I know I've lost the big chunk of the show, so I'll let you continue where you were when before I got on here.
Well, I think Jorge was wanting to address the subject of portals. That there's been a number of reports of people seeing portals all over the island, and I know that has been a popular subject in other locations.
Yes.
Was it the Skinwalker Ranch? There's been reports of portals, things like that. So go ahead, Jorge. What about this?
Well, now that you mentioned the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, we have several places here in Puerto Rico, inland, okay, in which this sort of thing happens. Openings that appear suddenly in the ground or in the air, and things come out from these openings or going into this opening, and then they close again. But mostly in the sky. We already have several pictures taken by people who were able to see this and take photographs with their cellular phones. It has been happening for many years, but now, since the 90s up to this moment, it has taken a lot of momentum. These holes appear in the sky, and you can see flying saucer type crafts, cylinder-shaped craft, or sphere-shaped craft coming out from them very fast, or going into them very fast, and then they close again. It is very fast. It takes only several seconds whenever this happens. But people have been able to take pictures. I have analyzed some of these pictures, and you can clearly see that we're talking about portals that seem to be like wormholes, okay? You can see the inner structure, the walls of the wormholes.
Send us one or two of those so we can put that up on our YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, now, okay. Do the craft that are coming through, do they seem to be all of one size and shape, or are they various type of ships?
Various types, sphere-shaped crafts or ball-shaped, however, cylinder-shaped craft, flying saucer-type craft. They come out from these openings and fly away in many directions, or go down into the sea and disappear on their sea. Okay, this has happened in different parts of the island, in the southwest, in the northwest, right over the island, there in the area next to Vieques, in the eastern part of the island. But it also happening in ground, as I told you, in the town of Sajuntas, next to Utuado in Puerto Rico, in the center of the island too, in Cayey and Sidra here in Puerto Rico. These openings appear in certain mountains, okay? The mountains illuminate, these holes appear, UFOs go into them, come out from them, and then they close again, okay? But we also have the situation in the rainforest, in the Yunque National Tropical Rainforest. There's about 3 or 4 places in the perimeter of the forest where this happened. But there's a main site where a very big portal appears. That is between the mountains of Yunque Mountain, Mount Britain, El Toro Mountain, and El Cacique Mountain. There's a very big, deep hollow there, what we call a cuenca, okay? In many occasions, this has been witnessed by people who work with the U.S. Forestry Service, biologists, policemen, etc. They see this bright light coming out from the ground. They always describe it as a very beautiful luminescence with a fuchsia, orangish, pinkish color, and everything becomes very bright. And when they look down, everything down there, the ground, the forest, the trees, everything disappears. It is as if it dematerializes. And this very big hole appears there, okay? And down there, looking through that hole, they have seen very deep underground, in the bowels of the earth, as they say it, like many structures. As when you are in a high road in the mountains and you see far away a town in between the mountains with lights, lampposts, and everything, but very, very far away, something like that underground. And they have seen crafts going down there or coming out from the hole too, and they have seen beings running into these places. We have people from the U.S. Forestry Service personnel who have encountered small humanoid beings there. Some of them have been surrounded by optic. I think I sent you an article, Timothy.
Yes, I remember publishing. I remember publishing one quite a few years ago. They were these little men. I think they were pretty small, right? Were in a cave.
Well, the thing is that they were following some two young women who work for the U.S. Forestry Service. Okay, and all of a sudden, one of them went away to do some research with pH of trees in another area, and this one remained alone. And all of a sudden, she is surrounded by about she says, some 50 beings of this type, okay? They seem to be very nice, and then they ran away, and when they run away, this hole opens. She sees everything down there, as many others have seen too, and then the beings run and go into this place. After they disappear into the hole, everything disappears, okay? The beam of light disappears, the trees reappear again, the ground, everything. And also from that same side, Tim, people in surroundings have seen late at night what seemed to be like a huge laser-like beam of light that come out from the ground into the space and disappear high into the space. And in the center of that beam of light, UFOs come down into this area or go out into space. And that has happened in many occasions. So as you can see, Mr. Swartz, it is, I'm sure that the U.S. Military, who have been doing research on what's going on there, have to be very aware because of this, because they have seen it. I'm sure they have seen it together as well as the people from the U.S. Forestry Service.
So now, and I realize, of course, that this would just be speculation on your part, but when you're dealing with these portals and openings into the ground, which seem to show these, like vast cities, do you think that we're dealing with, say, like extraterrestrial species, or possibly, as Tim Beckley likes to call them, ultra-terrestrials, beings that actually live here on Earth with us, along with us, but have kept themselves hidden from us, or maybe interdimensional types of beings? Yes. I mean, has anybody come forward with like personal encounters where some of these things have said, yeah, we come from the Zeta Reticuli or whatever?
No, not that type of information, but I agree with you and with Tim. After all the data I've gathered on this situation, my hypothesis is that they are interdimensional beings, okay? It is an interdimensional phenomenon that's going on there. And this has been going on there for, I would say, hundreds of years. Our esteemed Taino Arahuacos Indians said that their gods lived there, okay? That's where the good gods were. They call them the white lands because of the many white clouds all over the area on many occasions. And now we see all this activity there. And I understand now what they were referring to. To them, this type of beings, this type of phenomena, it had to be, something divine. And so they intertwine their beliefs and made a mythology out of this type of events there. I have evidence of Indian relics that show this type of the heads. I would like to say like the head of grace sculpted in rocks, okay, and many other things. In my opinion, the U.S. military has become aware of this, and that's why they have become, they have gained more and more control over the whole area. As a matter of fact, some years ago, the whole rainforest area was federalized by the U.S. government, and even though they officially they are not there, there's a very, I would say, ever-growing military presence in the rainforest. In many occasions, you go into the rainforest, it is allegedly it's a public place, an open place, and you go up there and walk different trails to different sites, and all of a sudden, these military men in camouflage suits come out, and at going point, ask you who you are, what you are looking for there, ask for your IDs, take notes, and then force you to leave the forest at once. No explanations given. Whenever people ask what they are doing, that's Puerto Rican land, they say, no, this is federal land, and we don't have to explain anything to you, okay? We are doing something here important, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of I just found this on the internet today, but there was no details at all about it. Apparently, someone had written a booklet about a UFO crash in the
yes.
El Yunque. Do you know when did that supposedly take place?
I wrote a book on that too. It's called Yunque, Portal a Otros Mundos, Yunque, Portal to the Worlds. And I began doing that book precisely because of a UFO crash that happened there back in February 1984. Bob Pratt, as a matter of fact, was doing research with me. He came to Puerto Rico, and we began doing research together. And we were going to do a book, but then afterwards, he got sick, he died, etc. And we. Now,
who was that you were going to write it with?
Bob Pratt.
Bob Pratt. Oh, yeah, wonderful researcher. All the cases he investigated in Brazil and all. We've utilized a lot of his material there on the the case. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that I began doing some investigations, and when an alleged plane crashed that night, February 16, 1984, in the rainforest, in an area next to El Yunque mountain. But the next day, there was a search that had been done, by the FAA, by the police, by the civil defense agencies, etc. And at 6 a.m. in the morning, everything was called off by high-level authorities, federal authorities. There was an order given that everyone had to leave the site, and that nothing had happened. And many people saw the craft, moving, doing erratic movements in the sky, and then afterwards crashing. And before crashing, it seemed to let out two smaller luminous objects that fell in different places in the rainforest. Eventually, we came to the knowledge that, yes, it was a huge flying saucer that crashed there, apparently because it was affected by some frequencies that were emitted by two powerful radar systems that the U.S. Navy had on top of a Pico del Este mountain there in the rainforest. They had installed some Doppler technologies that were very potent by those days. And the belief is that those frequencies somehow affected the craft functionality, and it crashed. Then I wrote the book beginning with that, but as I got into the place, the same as happened with the situation in Vieques, I began gathering more and more data and more information and more accounts, and eventually I talked to one person who was involved with the recovery of the craft, and he told me, for example, that even though he was not allowed to be in the center of the activity, he was in a security perimeter surrounding the area together with other people. He could see, and he was told by a Belgian translator, a woman, that what he believed was the truth because he saw them. And it was strange to him that the people who were doing the work of checking the remnants of the craft and recovering things and putting them in black trucks and getting these things away, etc., seemed to be from an international team. There were English, American, Japanese, German, and also, but strangely, he said, what was most strange to me that they were Chinese, popular China, communist China people involved too there. They were working together. And then
no sovereignty, no state sovereignty when it comes to UFOs, I guess, right?
Well, that the thing is that if you remember the case that this corporal, I don't remember his name at this moment, that Stephen Greer interviewed and came forward to talk about something that he witnessed himself in Peru, in a base that allegedly had to do with this fight against the drug trafficking in the forest area nearby the forest of the Amazon in Peru. And they downed something that he believed was an aircraft, and went there to check with his group of people from his unit, and he found it was a UFO. Okay, it was a flying saucer type craft. And the thing is that at one, there was a team of people dressed in black who took them away that wouldn't identify themselves, and took them to a place in the base where they were at that was totally off limits. And they were interviewed by many days and, harassed, etc., and threatened for having seen that and warned that they couldn't talk about it. But he said also that there was a team involved with the recovery of that object, that it was weird to him to see that there were French, Japanese, Belgians, German, and Chinese, popular communist China technicians involved in the whole situation. It is the same thing that happened here in the Yunque Rainforest. So that implies that an international group.
Did they take away the craft?
Yes, they took away the one here in Puerto Rico in 1984 was taken away in parts by people from the Roosevelt Roads Naval Station, taken to Roosevelt Roads, and from there it was shipped to the United States. And the smaller craft, I think that also the same thing happened, but they were found in different places in the rainforest. One of them next to Mount Britton, the other one farther away in an area more closer to the Pico del Este area. And also there were some people from the Puerto Rico television, from a TV channel, a news department, that by accident saw next in a site next to the raiders in Pico del Este, they saw a large-sized gray type-like being, dead in the ground, surrounded by people with the anti-contamination suit doing something with it. And they were taken away. They were harassed by people from the U.S. Navy. Their IDs were asked for. Everything was checked out. And then they let them go because they knew that if they disappeared or if they were apprehended, as they were people from the media, the people in the TV station would start, doing questions and asking for their reappearance again. And there will be some trouble. So they told him to go next day to the U.S. federal building here in Atorrey, and they were warned there not to talk ever about whatever happened. Some years later, they talked to me and told me what they have witnessed there, But that's not the only case. I have about 2 more crashes there. One of them was not a crash. It was that for some reason the craft landed, apparently because it was affected by the waves of the frequencies of the radar 2. In that occasion, I could talk to a person in a high position in U.S. security here in the island, and who told me that what other people had told me already. I was verifying this information, that craft that landed there was captured because as the military were already aware of the situation, they were They were checking on everything and captured the craft, but the beings fled, and they were looking for them all over the forest. And the craft had been taken to a secret facility they had already built there in the forest to study the craft.
All right. Well, Tim and Jorge, unfortunately, we are quickly approaching the end of tonight's program. So, Jorge, I'd like to give you a chance to have you tell our audience where they can find out more about you, where they can find your books if they're still in print. Do you have an online presence, that sort of thing?
Well, I don't have books in print at this moment. I'm trying to get them in electronic printing, to distribute them through the internet. But those who might want to get in contact with me or know more about the things that I publish and investigate, they can go to my page in Facebook, which is under my name, Jorge Martin Miranda. Jorge Martin Miranda. And my telephone number is 787-758-0692. 787-758-0692.
No, I did find, by Googling your name, I did find a website that had quite a few of your articles in there, and I started reading them. I guess this is stuff that you've posted over the last, decade or so, I would assume.
Yes, that's a blog I was doing, but for some time I have not published anything in it again.
Yeah, so. But that's great. That's great stuff. How did they get to the? Well, Google it. They Google your name, they're going to come up with a wealth of material, because you're the guy to go see there in Puerto Rico. I mean, you're the main man, and you've been doing this. How many years you've been doing this now, Jorge?
Since 1973.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, we're both old timers here. Well, it has indeed been a pleasure to have you on the show, and we want to continue with this somewhere down the. I was going to say down the road, but down the jungle trail might be a better way of putting it. Fabulous show, and we thank you for gracing our airwaves.
Okay. On the contrary, I thank you both for giving me the opportunity to talk to your audience, okay, and to hear these things that are happening here in Puerto Rico, because the situation is very important and has many implications.
All right, so Tim and Jorge, thanks for being with us tonight on Exploring the Bizarre.
Bless you, man. Keep well. Not like me.
You've been listening to Exploring the Bizarre with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. They're taking back the night by jetting non-stop across the cosmos in search of the truly bizarre and totally unexplained, with you as their co-pilot. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on Exploring the Bizarre and hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz, check out their KCOR Digital Radio Network page. Follow their YouTube channel at MRUFO 1100. Exploring the Bizarre.